Shift 5. Okay, this is Dr. Jones checking in. This is ANP 2, Lecture Test 2, Video 5, starting at the top of page 14. Something else I was going to say? Okay. We did all of the pars distalis hormones, and now we're talking about the one pars intermedia hormone. Pen color, blue. Pars intermedia of the adenohypophysis, which is the anterior pituitary gland. So the hypothalamic hormone here is dopamine, which is inhibitory. And pituitary hormone is MSH, melanocyte-stimulating hormone, which used to be melanotropin, which makes sense. And it causes the melanocytes to make melanin. MSH is the only hormone secreted by the, that's right, and it is secreted in 1, fetal development, 2, young kids, 3, pregnant women, and 4, some diseases, which I can't remember if we're going to talk about this test or not. I don't remember. Okay. Ooh, a quiz. Let's see. So I think we start here on this quiz with direct control by the nervous system to the adrenal medulla. And that causes the adrenal medulla to release. If you said epinephrine and norepinephrine, excellent work. And now from the pars distalis of the adenohypophysis to the adrenal cortex, we have ACTH. Oh, it was just me. He's okay. I gotta pepper the pupper in my lap here. And that causes the adrenal cortex to make glucocorticoids, including cortisol and corticosterone, and also androgens. And then to the thyroid gland, we have TSH, and it makes the thyroid make thyroid hormones, T3 and T4. To the mammary glands is, no, liver first. Okay, so to the liver is growth hormone, which is somatotropin, and that makes the liver make somatomedins. Yeah, I thought so. And did that just rotate? And that causes growth. And then to the mammary glands is prolactin. And the 2 gonadotropins are FSH and LH. FSH is follicle stimulating hormone. LH is luteinizing hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone makes the production of gametes. Still there? And a luteinizing hormone makes production of the sex hormones, be they androgens, estrogens, and progestins. Androgens or estrogens and progestins. That way. And they all make inhibin because, you know, inhibition is important or you get too much of everything. Did that just fly in? Okay. And then from the pars intermedia to the melanocytes is MSH. And that's everything we just said for the last few pages of Noteset. Okay. So the post-pit, the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland, is called the neurohypophysis. Remember, it was from the purple neuro stuff, embryologically speaking. And they are 2 nuclei called the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei. And I never remember which one does which means if I don't know off the top of my head, you don't need to know for the test. But together they make the anti-diuretic hormone and oxytocin. One makes, I think if I write it down, I have SO over ADH. So the supraoptic nucleus makes the ADH and the paraventricular nucleus makes oxytocin. So that's how that works. And they are carried through the neurons. Remember the term anterograde axoplasmic transport. So that's the term for stuff being made in the nucleus of the neuron and being carried through the axoplasm. Anterograde axoplasmic transport. So fun to say. And why do they say the neural hypothesis releases instead of secretes ADH and OXT? Because it doesn't make them, it only releases them. Secreting them means making and releasing. So that's why. Next, we need to talk about what ADH and OXT do. ADH first, it is antidiuretic hormone. We've used this as an example several times. We said diuretics make you pee, so antidiuretic hormone makes you not pee. So it inhibits urination. Okay, you know what? When we get to urinary system, we will get into the details of how. Not today. Is a summer semester as I record this, so give me like 2 weeks. We'll be three tests ahead. Okay. I said all of that. Antidiuretic hormone is released in response to an increased blood solute concentration or a decrease in blood volume or blood pressure. Okay, so here's our blood solute concentration. When we have an increase in blood solutes, the solutes are the stuff in the blood that's not the fluid. When you have a decrease in blood volume, then you still have the same amount of solute, so you'll have an increased solute concentration. And when you have a low blood volume, you have a low blood pressure, because blood pressure is the pressure of the blood pushing on the walls of the blood vessels. So decreased blood volume is decreased blood pressure. So one of the first ways that we will work on increasing blood pressure is to increase blood volume, specifically by making you not pee. So if you pee less, then you'll increase your blood volume over time because you'll be losing less. That makes sense. Okay. Osmoreceptors monitor changes in the osmotic concentration, and the osmotic concentration is the total solute concentration. So the solutes are the stuff in the fluid, and the osmotic concentration is the total. So like if you put you have a bottle of water and you put a crystallite powder in it, then you have a certain osmotic concentration because you have a certain number of solutes per amount of fluid. If you mess up and actually accidentally put in a second crystallite powder, or God forbid, a different flavor of crystallite powder or a different brand of powder together, then you would double the osmotic concentration because you would have twice as much solute per the same volume of fluid. So that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about solute concentration, how much stuff is there in the liquid. And if you have an increased solute concentration, then you want more water. Okay. And how does ADH work? It causes you to retain water at the kidneys, which is how they say decrease urination, which is how I say pee less. So retains water from the digestive tract, which will decrease osmolarity because it will increase the water over time. And increased concentration, vasoconstriction, increased blood pressure. Okay, so alcohol inhibits ADH. So that's why. Diabetes insipidus, which I have mentioned in passing, is not enough or no ADH. And without ADH, you pee too much. So without any ADH, you can pee up to 10 liters of liquid a day. Normal is 1 to 2 liters a day. How many days can you pee out 10 liters of pee and live to talk about it? So they do have a synthetic ADH called desmopressin. I believe there's also a diet that goes along with ADH that I don't yet know much about. So if you're looking for a topic for your extra credit essay, how does the nutrition fit in with a hormone deficiency? Inquiring minds want to know. I would tend to my fingers for you, but I'm still petting Pepper the Pupper. Okay, oxytocin. Did I do a timer this time? I did not do a timer. Okay, let's talk about oxytocin, and then we've got like a couple of pages of thyroid bits. So let's finish the oxytocin because it goes with the ADH, and then we'll do thyroid as its own video. So top of page 15. Oxytocin is the cuddle hormone. Explain the functions of oxytocin. Oxy means quick, tokos is childbirth, and it's abbreviated capital O, capital X, capital T. And it stimulates smooth muscle contractions in the uterus wall during labor and delivery. It is released by the uterus and by the baby, triggering birth. Oxytocin role in milk ejection. As you may recall, prolactin causes the production of the milk, but the oxytocin will cause the release of the milk. So it is stimulated by tactile stimulation. So first step, latch the baby on. Always the first step. And then that tactile stimulation goes up to the brain, causes the hypothalamus to release oxytocin from the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland, the neurohypophysis, which I call the post-pit to be funny. Where was I in my note set? Oxytocin, I said all that. Okay, and so that squeezes the milk from the secretory alveoli in the mammary gland to the mammary duct. And the hypothalamus is affected by stress. So if you are stressed out, that can affect your milk being released to baby. So if you're stressed out, the official suggestion is to take a deep breath and let it go, which, sounds so simple, doesn't it? What I found worked was just to focus on the baby and how sweet and adorable and that tiny little nugget of life with such a big personality right from the beginning, and how sweet they are, and smell their little heads, and how they trust you and love you, and you love them and care for them, and then just the whole rest of the world can go. Yeah, so 3 deep breaths. Just focus on the baby. Okay. Life is stressful, but. And oxytocin's role in sexual activity, it increases during arousal and peaks at orgasm. So emission in men, it causes emission. Emission is the part where the sperm and the secretions enter the reproductive tract. Where are you going, dog? And in women, it transports the sperm to the uterine tube. So there's actually smooth muscle contractions that move the sperm in woman's body towards the eggs. So if you're, we'll get there. We'll talk about that when we get there. Okay, so milk ejection reflex. This is a demand and supply system. Back to the breastfeeding. So it's baby being latched on that starts this whole, process. So if baby is not latched on often enough, long enough, then your body will not make as much milk. So if you are having, if you are wanting a long-term breastfeeding relationship, you need to latch the baby on whenever they want, mostly, whenever you can. So the WHO recommendations, we'll come back to that. The World Health Organization recommends, and given these are worldwide recommendations, and in most of the world there is not safe drinking water to make formula. So given that, the worldwide recommendations are for all babies to be exclusively breastfed for 6 months. And exclusively breastfed means just breast milk, no cow's milk, no formula, no water, just breast milk for the first 6 months, and then to continue breastfeeding along with appropriate complementary solid foods, so also food, until the age of 2 or beyond, until mama and or baby are done. So again, the WHO recommendations, exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months and to continue up to age 2. Now there's some other important dates. I know half y'all said age 1. Very important things you need to know about breastfeeding before age of 1. If you wean before the age of 1, you put them on formula. Not almond milk, not cow's milk, not hemp milk, not some formula recipe that you found on the interwebs that is not nutritious enough. Until the age of 1, your options are breast milk, formula. That's it. Breast milk and formula. And once they're 6 months, or if they're picking the food up off your plate and putting it in their mouth, they're ready for solid foods. If you put food in their mouth, if you put the mush in their mouth and they and push it back out with their tongue, they're not ready for solid nutrition. Now you can keep feeding them because it makes great pictures for the grandparents, and it's lots of fun, but it's not a source of nutrition until after they are ready to actually swallow the food that you put in their face. Okay. So exclusive breastfeeding or exclusive formula, or both if you want. Yeah, but not cow's milk, not almond milk, not hemp milk, not any of that until after the age of 1. The other important thing with the age of 1 for feeding babies is no honey until after the age of 1. Honey has botulism spores. Now, given that if you're not immune compromised, it's not enough to make you sick, but babies under the age of 1, it is a risk, and risks like that aren't worth taking. All right, so the demand and supply system. If you are choosing the full-term breastfeeding relationship of 2 years, and everybody has to make their own choices, but if that's what you're wanting, then you're going to want to latch on according to baby's cues. So with a formula-fed baby, you give them 2 ounces every 2 hours. Once they're bigger, you can move to 4 ounces every 4 hours. And with a formula-fed baby, you want to make sure that you're not underfeeding or overfeeding the baby. With a breastfed baby, how do you know? You can't tell how much milk they're getting. You can't even tell if they're getting milk. So how you keep track to make sure that baby is getting enough is you count diapers. You count wet diapers, you count dirty diapers, you count poopy diapers. And so my midwife gave me a refrigerator magnet. With these ages, you need these many diapers, these many wet diapers, this many poopy diapers per day. And so we kept track of that because that's what you do. So how do you know when to latch the baby on? At this point, usually the whole class says they're crying, which works for formula. With breastfeeding, it does not work because crying is a late sign of hunger, and because when baby latches on, they have to latch on right or they won't get the milk. By the time they're crying, they're too pissed off to latch on right, and you're going to spend time just calming down the screaming, hangry, red-faced very hangry nugget that is, it's impossible. So you want the early signs of hunger for a breastfed baby. The early signs of hunger are if they put their fists in their mouth, latch them on, feed them. If they are rooting, rooting is when they're like turning their head, like looking for the nipple with their head. If they're moving their tongue in their mouth, like then latch them on. So anytime they're like moving their face, when they're in their quiet alert state, they're like just watching everything. So when they stop that and start like moving their mouth, putting things in their mouth, feed them, latch them on and feed them. Okay. And last bit, high frequency days. Because this is a demand and supply system, when baby is about to have a growth spurt, and this usually happens about every 3 months, 3, 6, 9, 12 months, for a couple of days ahead of time, they will have what we call high frequency days, where baby will want to be attached all day long. Now, my sister didn't know about high frequency days, so when she hit that 3-month mark, she thought, older sister, she thought, oh my goodness, the baby is hungry, he's starving, and then she started supplementing with formula. Well, once you supplement, you have less demand, and then you will make less supply. So once you start supplementing, you will lower your supply. So if you're wanting to lower your supply and start weaning them off, you start supplementing, because the more time they spend on the bottle, the less time they're latched on. And that's what you want when you're weaning, okay? So whatever it is you want, make appropriate decisions for that. If you're wanting to breastfeed them until they're 2, you don't want to start supplementing at 3 months because of a high frequency day. And like literally all day long. So if that's what you want, I'm recording. Those are the choices you make. Okay, so make whatever choice is appropriate for what you want out of life. And I didn't have a timer going. And how long have we been talking? Okay, so I am going to wrap this up. We will start at 18.4 in the middle of page 15 for the next video. So this has been A&P 2, Lecture Test 2, Video 5, Noteset pages 14 and 15. Keyboard control. Okay. Thank you as always for tuning in. The education must go on. Dr. J out. It made a noise. Did it stop recording? How about that time? What? No. But is it still recording? Control, escape.